If you haven't watched part 1 yet, we highly recommend you do so before jumping into this video. After Bakari's lies shattered the family, Adanna cut off all contact with the Achebes. But Zaye isn't ready to let her go and is fighting to win her back. If you think Bakari got what he deserved and hope Zaye will bring Adanna home, think again. Because sometimes the real bad guy isn't who you think. Zaye has dark secrets that are about to come to light, leading to a deadly rivalry between the brothers over Adanna. By the end, only one of them will make it out alive. So get ready, because this is where the story truly begins. After everything that had happened, Adanna was back at her parents' house. She felt betrayed and humiliated after Zaye believed Bakari's lies about her. And learning that Zaye only married her to save his family's business was the worst. She decided to divorce. But Zaye wasn't ready to give up on their marriage. Every day he went to her parents' house, waiting outside just to see her. Even when it rained, he was there. Adanna ignored him, keeping her distance. But he kept coming back every day after work. Adanna's father saw how Zaye was trying hard to get his daughter back. One day, he pulled Adanna aside and said, "Adanna, I know you are mad at him. But remember, Zaye didn't betray you. He just believed his brother in a moment of weakness. That doesn't make him a bad man. Now he's here every day trying to make it right. Don't be too quick to throw everything away. Sometimes, forgiveness is harder than leaving, but it's worth it." Adanna resisted at first, but she couldn't deny that Zaye was trying hard to get her back. One evening, she finally agreed to speak with him. Zaye cried, apologizing sincerely for not trusting her. He told her that he had learned from his mistake and promised that he would never do that again. After her father's insistence, Adanna finally agreed to return to the Achebe household, deciding to give Zaye one last chance. Back in the Achebe home, Zaye took small steps every day to show that he was sincere. He surprised her with small gestures, leaving flowers on her table, cooking meals for her, and listening to her without interruption when she needed to talk. Over time, Adanna couldn't deny the change in Zaye, and she found herself falling for him again. Then one day, she discovered something amazing. She was pregnant. When she told Zaye the news, he was so happy, promising to give her and their child all the love in the world. But when Mrs. Achebe learned about the pregnancy, she said, "I hope it's a boy." Adanna felt angry at that remark, but she kept quiet to keep the peace in the house. Everything was perfect for her. Bakari and Zuri were no longer in the picture. Zaye was by her side, and they were about to start a peaceful family life. But little did she know, this new peace was only the calm before the storm. A part of Zaye's past was about to return, and it would destroy everything she was building. A few months into the pregnancy, Adanna noticed Zaye seemed distracted. She saw him whispering with his mother, Mrs. Achebe, more than usual. Whenever she asked what they were talking about, he brushed it off, saying it was just family, business. But it was clear something was going on. Then, one day everything changed. Adanna was sitting in the living room, reading quietly when she heard someone knocking loudly at the door. The servant opened the door and a woman Adanna had never seen before stormed into the house. She looked angry and was holding a small child in her arms. "I want to talk to Zaye now," she shouted, her voice shaking. Adanna was confused. Who was this woman who was trying to talk to her husband? She went to see what was going on. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to keep calm. The woman looked at her with a mix of anger and pity. "I'm Eden, and I'm here to see Zaye, the father of my son." Adanna was so shocked, her heart skipped a beat. "Your son? What are you talking about?" she asked. "Yes, Zaye has a son with me," the woman replied. They even have the same birthmark on their leg. Ask him yourself. He knows all about me. Adanna looked at the little boy in the woman's arms. He looked just like Zaye and even had the same birthmark. She was so shocked that she fainted. Adanna woke up in her bed. Zaye was sitting next to her, holding her hand. When she saw him, she instantly started shouting, "Is it true? Did you have a child with another woman?" Zaye looked down, guilt on his face. "Yes, Adanna. It happened while I was away on that long business trip. I was lonely and it was a mistake. I didn't know how to tell you." Adanna was so mad she jumped on him, scratching his face. "You were lonely," she shouted. "And yet when you came back, you were so quick to believe Bakari's lies that I had cheated on you with no proof at all. And here you are, admitting you betrayed me." Now Adanna understood why Zaye had been so anxious lately. He'd found out about his mistress's child and didn't know how to handle it. When Adanna went to Mrs. Achebe to complain, she discovered that Mrs. Achebe already knew about her son's affair. Furious, Adanna left the house once again. This family was a complete joke. When she arrived, she told her father everything. She explained how Zaye had betrayed her, how he had another child with this woman named Eden. "I want a divorce. I can't live with him anymore," she said firmly. Her mom supported her, but her dad, once again, had a different point of view. "Adanna," he said softly, "what Zaye did was wrong, and I don't blame you for being mad. But you are carrying his child, and this is your home now. Do you want your child to grow up without their father? You should give him one last chance." Adanna was shocked. She was expecting her dad to side with her for once. Why was he always supporting Zaye? Was it because he didn't want to have a divorced daughter? Anyway, she didn't have any other choice than to return to the Achebe's house. But this time, she wasn't going back because she forgave Zaye. She was going back because her father asked her to, and because of her child. Back in the Achebe household, Zaye tried hard to win her trust back. Every day, he brought her small gifts, tried to spend time with her, and showed his excitement for their baby. But Adanna didn't care. She cried every night, asking herself why this was happening to her. Then one day, the moment she had been waiting for finally arrived. She gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Zaye was so happy, but Mrs. Achebe's reaction was different. She smiled, but Adanna could see a bit of disappointment in her eyes. She had been hoping for a boy, someone who would carry on the Achebe family name. In the days that followed, Mrs. Achebe became colder toward Adanna and her daughter, ignoring both of them. She had a secret plan that would break Adanna's heart. Mrs. Achebe decided that Aiden, the mistress, and her son would move into the family home. She said that the first grandson needed to be raised properly. When Adanna learned about that, she went crazy. This was the highest level of humiliation. She started a fight with Zaye, who acted like she was overreacting. "It's only temporary," he said. "Mum just wants to make sure my child is raised well. There is nothing between me and Eden, and she won't bother you." Eden and her son were now living under the same roof. Both Mr. and Mrs. Achebe clearly favored the boy over Adanna's daughter. Eden noticed that too, and started mocking Adanna when they were alone. "At least I gave him a boy," she said. But Adanna didn't want to start a fight, so she tried her best to ignore her. Months passed, and Adanna discovered another shocking fact. While looking through the papers in Zaye's office, she learned that Mrs. Achebe had named Eden's son as Zaye's successor if something happened to him. Adanna felt isolated and betrayed, but didn't say anything. For a couple of years, life in the Achebe household became unbearable for Adanna. Eden's son began picking on Adanna's young daughter, mocking her, calling her names, and saying that one day everything in the house would belong to him. Adanna's daughter, still so young and innocent, didn't understand why he was so mean. She would cry and run to her mother. Whenever Adanna tried to address it, Mrs. Achebe would brush it off, saying, "They're just children. They're only playing." What Adanna didn't know was that staying in this house would cost her everything. One afternoon, Adanna's daughter was playing near the swimming pool. She was laughing and running near the edge. Eden's son was watching and decided to bully her. He walked up to the poor little girl and pushed her hard into the water. Adanna's daughter didn't know how to swim, so she quickly began to drown. When Adanna heard the screams from the house, she panicked and ran to the pool. Her heart dropped as she saw her daughter's small body sinking into the water. She jumped in without hesitation and pulled her out. They rushed to the hospital, but her daughter was in a coma. The entire family met her there. Adanna, her eyes filled with grief and rage, looked directly at Mrs. Achebe and started screaming. "Your grandson pushed her into the water. He bullied her every day and you let him do it. You are as guilty as he is," she cried, her voice breaking. But Mrs. Achebe was ready to defend her favorite grandson. "Calm down," she said. "This is a tragedy, but children play rough. It's not fair to blame him. These things happen. Let's just pray that she gets better." Eden added some spice. "My son didn't mean to hurt her. It's unfortunate, but perhaps you should have taught your daughter to swim." Adanna was heartbroken. She had no support. Even Zaye didn't say a thing. Adanna felt completely alone, surrounded by people who saw her and her child as nothing more than an inconvenience. But life was about to get darker for her. After days of fighting for her life, Adanna's daughter sadly passed away. Her scream could be heard throughout the hospital as she held her little princess's lifeless body in her arms. At that moment, Adanna's life changed completely. She had lost everything, and it was impossible to describe the pain. She went to her parents' house and stayed in her bedroom, refusing to talk to anyone. In reality, she was plotting her revenge. Adanna's father was devastated and begged Adanna to divorce. "I'm sorry I told you to stay in that marriage. They made your life miserable. Please leave." But Adanna's sadness had turned to a cold, calculating rage. She looked at her father and replied, "Leave? Oh no, Papa, it's too early for me to leave. I will first make them pay for everything they have done. I will destroy this family from the inside. I promise." Adanna returned to the Achebe home, and Zaye tried to comfort her, determined to be a better husband. He realized how much his actions had caused her pain, but Adanna kept her distance, maintaining a calm and fake expression. She was no longer the nice, obedient wife. She was now a woman on a mission, determined to destroy them and everything they had built. And for that, she would use Bakari, the disowned Achebe son. Bakari was now living alone and cut off from the family's wealth after his failed marriage to Zuri and his attempt to destroy Zaye's marriage. Bakari was now able to walk, but was struggling, burdened by medical bills, and a life filled with regret. He didn't have any money to pay for all that, and was working small jobs to be able to eat. When Adanna visited him, Bakari was surprised to see her after so many years. She was still so beautiful and he couldn't contain his excitement. Adanna offered to help him with all expenses. She brought him food every day and spent a lot of time talking. After years of being alone and sad, he finally had someone who cared about him. As Adanna continued visiting Bakari, he began to open up, telling her that he regretted not marrying her from the beginning. Adanna started playing with his mind. Her goal was to make him fall in love with her again, which wasn't a difficult task. At the same time, Adanna began influencing Zaye's business decisions. She pretended to support him and suggested new investments that seemed promising, but they were traps. She secretly took over her dad's business and slowly started stealing the big customers of the Achebe family. She had access to Zaye's office and could steal information about their next business plans. Month after month, Zaye found himself in big financial trouble and didn't know what was going on. He became more stressed and didn't want his parents to know that the business was going bad. Meanwhile, Bakari fell deeply in love with Adanna once again. One day, she told him about everything that happened, how Zaye cheated on her, which led to her losing her daughter. She said, "I wish I had left Zaye for you. I want to do it now, but Zaye threatened to hurt me if I leave." It was a lie, but she was manipulating him. Bakari was furious. She played into these emotions, allowing him to think there was a chance for them, if only Zaye were out of the picture. In the background, the Achebe business was failing. Mrs. Achebe realized it too late and started panicking. They tried to understand what was going on and how they lost so much money and customers, but it was too late. Adanna's plan was moving forward perfectly. She had gained Bakari's trust, manipulated Zaye into financial debt, and created panic within the Achebe family. But she wasn't finished. She needed to take her revenge to its final step, ensuring that the Achebe family was destroyed for good. One evening, Adanna invited Bakari to meet her at the Achebe house. It was the first time Bakari went back to his parents' house in years. Adanna was dressed so well and smelled so good. Bakari, who had fallen deeply in love with her all over again, was completely captivated. The house was empty, but Adanna knew that Zaye would come back from work pretty soon. She took Bakari into her bedroom and hugged him. "Bakari," she whispered, "I should have listened to my heart instead of following what was expected of me. I want to be with you. I can't live without you." Bakari's heart raced. He had waited so long to hear these words. Without a word, he took her hands in his, pulling her close. She didn't resist, allowing him to lean in, and finally they shared a long, lingering kiss. It was the moment Bakari had dreamed of for so long, and he was the happiest person in the world. Adanna let herself fall into the kiss, her mind coldly calculating her next move. She knew exactly when Zaye would appear, and as planned, he walked in just in time to see them in a quiet, intimate embrace. Zaye froze in the doorway, his eyes widening in shock and anger. "Adanna! Bakari!" he said, shouting. "How could you do this to me, Adanna? And you, Bakari, you are still trying to destroy my life. Why? You're my brother!" Bakari stood up defensively. "I'm the one who should be with her," he said. "You never deserved Adanna. You cheated on her and caused her pain. I will take better care of her." Adanna was silent, watching both brothers fight with a cold smile. The two brothers faced each other, their rage boiling over, and it was clear that neither was willing to back down. In an instant, Zaye lunged forward, pushing Bakari against the wall. Bakari fought back, and soon the two were brutally hitting each other. This was what Adanna had planned for, to see the brothers destroy each other over the pain they had caused her and the betrayal they'd each chosen. As the fight escalated, Bakari, blinded by fury, pushed Zaye hard. Zaye stumbled backward, losing his balance, and fell from the high balcony, crashing onto the floor below. Bakari looked down, his face filled with horror as he realized what he had done. He turned to Adanna, completely terrified, and screamed, "Let's go, let's run away. We can start a new life somewhere else." But Adanna replied, "No, I don't love you, Bakari. I just used you to hurt your own brother. How does it feel when someone lies to you?" Bakari was speechless. She added, "This family destroyed me. It's my turn to give you all a taste of your own medicine." Bakari realized his mistake and ran away from the house. Zaye was found by the house servant and rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. When Mr. and Mrs. Achebe heard about the news of their son's passing, they were devastated. Adanna told everyone that Bakari had come back for revenge and pushed his brother, so no one knew about her plan. No one knew where Bakari went after that. Adanna used the moment of confusion and grief in the family to take over their business. She sold everything and used her own family's influence and connections to claim the remaining Achebe assets, leaving the family without any money. When she was satisfied with what she had caused, she went to see Mrs. Achebe and told her about everything. She ended up saying, "You played with the wrong woman. Now everything you valued is gone." Mrs. Achebe stared at her, shock and terror filling her eyes. She couldn't believe the woman standing before her, the quiet, obedient daughter-in-law she had once dismissed, had orchestrated the fall of her family. But she was defeated and could only cry her eyes out. The Achebe family, once powerful and feared, was now nothing but a broken legacy. Adanna got her revenge and was now ready to move on with her life. Thank you for watching till the end. Until next time, take care and keep the stories alive.